Samy, welcome to Inside the Lab, discussions with
Hi, Anne.
media professionals that bring value to the streaming ecosystem in Middle East and North Africa. I'm very happy
Hi.
to have you here. Samy, first of all, you are Belgian. So first time I think I have a Belgian guy here in the podcast. And
Uh,
second of all, you've spent like quite some time working in Middle East and Dubai. So I'm happy to have
yes.
you today.
Hi, Anne. Hi, Anne. Yes, it's a pleasure to be here. Yeah, I'm both Belgian and originally Middle Eastern, so I've spent most of my life between Belgium and the Middle East, and I've been based here in Dubai, yes, since 2014 now. And yeah,
Great.
I'm happy to be here.
Exactly like me.
Yeah.
Let me start by detailing a little bit what we want to talk about today. A quick introduction. I want to know who you are, Samy. I want to know, of course,
Absolutely.
what you do at EdgeNext. Then
Absolutely.
we'll explain to my audience what's the role of CDN in streaming, which is key.
Hmm.
And then we'll talk specifically Middle East, North Africa. So what are the challenges we have today in the streaming media industry? What's the potential, of course? And then I'd like to hear about your approach as EdgeNext.
Absolutely.
What makes you different compared to your
Hmm.
competitors? Then I think you have a case study you can share with us today, which is great. And then we'll try to define the future of streaming. Let's see. I'm sure we have those ideas on streaming media will evolve, specifically in the MENA region. Okay, so Sami,
Absolutely.
who are you? Tell me everything.
Well, thank you for the introduction, Jan. So, as mentioned before, I've been based here since 2014, and ever since I moved to the UAE, I've been pretty much involved in B2B sales, especially in the tech industry. So I've joined EdgeNext around a year ago, but prior to EdgeNext, I've held similar roles in B2B sales management in companies such as Oracle, Canon, Microsoft. And after years in the industry, I found myself in the CDN sector, which I will explain very shortly. And that's pretty much, a brief summary about myself. Now, what I do at EdgeNext is very simple. So I've joined EdgeNext as their new sales director for key accounts. And I mainly focus on enterprise level accounts across the MENA region. So in the GCC, other Middle Eastern countries, and also beyond. So this is mainly what I've been doing at EdgeNext, focusing on managing a portfolio of strategic accounts in the region and making sure that they receive everything they need from a CDN perspective. That's
EdgeNext has been around for quite some time in Middle East, right?
EdgeNext actually started over a decade ago, I think over 11 or 12 years ago. We originally started as a part of a company called Baishan Cloud. So Baishan Cloud used to be one of the largest, cloud providers back in China. And over time, we rebranded as EdgeNext, so the CDN arm of Baishan Cloud started being called EdgeNext. And when it comes to the Middle East, we started our Middle East operation before 2019. So it's been quite a while. It's been over 7 years that we're operational in the region. EdgeNext has been one of those CDN providers that has entered the Middle East very intensely. EdgeNext has been building a very strong presence in the region since 2019.
I can see a lot of companies, especially tech companies, that try to
Mhm.
penetrate the market, but they come once a year. Like they come to big events and that's it. And I always tell, if you want to operate in the region, you need to invest. You need to have people on the ground. You need to
Absolutely.
spend time meeting the ecosystem, not only once or twice a year, but like every day. And that's key. That's a good approach. Definitely. Definitely.
One thing that EdgeNext understood from the very start when they entered the region is that when it comes to CDN, it's not only about, investing heavily in local infrastructure, but it's also having a team on ground. Since CDN is such a sensitive part of every digital native business, having a team in the region that is reachable at any point of time is always a strong added value. And this is something that EdgeNext invested in since day one.
Most of my audience are media professionals, so streaming media professionals coming from all over the world. So they should know what is a CDN. Having said that, I think it would be good if you could remind us what is a
What is a
CDN
CDN?
exactly. Yes.
Absolutely. So I'm glad you asked, Tian, because I'll tell you something funny. Even before joining EdgeNext, I did not know what a
You
CDN was,
see?
although I although I
But
had been working, although I
mm,
had been working in the tech industry for a very long time, and when I understood what CDN is, I was very surprised that not more people know about it. So, for your information, this is coming from a Cisco report. Over 71% of the world's internet traffic from everything. So you open your phone, you open your any streaming application, you watch your movie, you watch your series, or even when you order a cab, you book an airplane ticket, you order food online, anything you might be doing online, two-thirds of the time, it is delivered through a CDN network. So we're all using CDN at all times, and we don't know what it is. So CDN is basically how the internet works. So every company that offers, let's say, digital services, whether it's a streaming platform that offers entertainment, whether it's a live broadcasting channel, whether it's an application that is digitally native, like airlines companies, food delivery companies, anything that works through a website or application, they have something that we call an origin server. This is usually the cloud server, for instance, where they host their primary data. And this origin server connects to a network of servers located remotely. Those are called a CDN. This is a content delivery network, CDN. So let's say, for instance, that Jan today wants to watch a movie on a streaming platform which has its origin server in France. It's a French streaming platform, but you're located in Dubai. So you will be connected to the edge server that is located the nearest to you to ensure the best digital performance. So you'll be connected to the edge server that is located here in Dubai. This is basically how CDN works. And I like to give non-technical examples. I like to compare a CDN network to a bank. Let's say that you open a bank account at any given bank. Let's imagine every time you need to withdraw money, you have to go to the main branch. The main branch would be overcrowded with people. It would create delay, latency, and perhaps they would even have to shut down the main branch at some point from how many people go there. So instead, whenever you want to withdraw money, you go to the ATM that is located the nearest to your house, right? That belongs to that bank. A CDN network works exactly the same. Every company has a main branch, that's their origin server. And what we do is that we provide the ATM machines. So basically the CDN network that delivers that data to the location that is the nearest to the end user to ensure the best digital performance.
I really like the analogy. And it's important also to realize that CDN is not only about audio and video. Of course, we work in the streaming media ecosystem. But unfortunately, a lot of my friends also heard about CDN when there are issues. We faced a couple of outages in the past
Mhm.
few months and years. So that's exactly what happened, right?
Yes, exactly. I'll just mention two things based on what you said. So first of all, when it comes to CDN, like you mentioned, it's not only audio and visuals, it's everything from static data to dynamic data to big file download to video on demand. So any kind of data that really we consume as end users is actually delivered through a CDN. Now, just like you mentioned, over the past few years, we had some major players in the market that faced outages. Now, thankfully, not to brag, but EdgeNext has never faced an outage over the past 7 years, and there is a reason for that. So it's very important, and I'm sure that we're going to elaborate on that point during our meeting because this is a very important topic that you've mentioned. It's very important to have a lot of edge servers, a strong CDN infrastructure and footprint in any given region. Because what causes an outage is simply the fact that, first of all, sometimes, and this is less likely, there is some kind of cybersecurity threat. And the second reason, which is the most likely, is that there are just too many end users being connected to the same edge server, which causes this edge server to be basically overloaded, which leads to an outage. Just like I've mentioned earlier, imagine if everybody had to go to the same branch to withdraw money. At some point, it would just become too overcrowded. When this happens with an edge server, first of all, we start facing delays, latencies. Like when you want to watch your movie, you start seeing this little dot saying buffering, 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 buffering. But at some point, it might cause an outage, which is why companies such as EdgeNext make sure that they have a very strong footprint in the region. EdgeNext has over
Hmm.
1,800 points of presence. Points of presence in the world of CDN is basically a location where we place our servers.
What about in MENA?
Yes. So in MENA alone, we have over 90 points of presence, and those 90 points of presence include over 700 edge server, which by definition means that we have the strongest CDN infrastructure and footprint in the region compared to any other given major player. There's no other CDN company that has a footprint that is as wide and as significant as EdgeNext in the MENA region. So sometimes some CDN providers might mention where they're located. In our case, thank God it's easier to say that wherever you do business, we're pretty much present. We're in every single major city in the world. It's safe to say.
So if I had to summarize, localization is key, right? It's true for content, but it's also true for tech and specifically for CDN.
Absolutely, absolutely, 100%.
Let's focus on streaming right now. So as you know, streaming media in Middle East and North Africa is growing a lot. There are today more than 100 streaming platforms that are active in the region. 2/3 are
Correct.
local, coming
Yeah.
from broadcasters, coming from telecom, pure players. Now we have new business model, past micro dramas. So it's pretty impressive. And I've been tracking the market for the past 10 years. And I can say that I never get bored, but every week, every month, there is a new platform, new project. So it's amazing. Maybe it means more clients for you. What I would like to know is if we focus on the region, why do you think MENA is very, on the one hand, challenging, but on the other hand, the potential is there?
Absolutely. Look, let me tell you something. In the industry, there's a misconception when it comes to MENA that it's a secondary market. This is a huge misconception. You might notice, for example, that in Europe, most Europeans will consume content through streaming platforms that are your usual suspects, big American streaming platforms. They don't have a lot of localized streaming platforms. Here in the region, it's a completely different story. Not only do we consume massive amount of content from international streaming platforms, which are very well known. No need to mention their names, we all know them. At the same time, there is a lot of, as you mentioned, localized streaming platforms. And the reason why is because people here want to consume content in their own language and in other languages as well. And so the variety of streaming platforms and the amount of content that end users consume in the region, in my opinion, places the MENA region as one of the most important primary markets for CDN companies. Now, for us, this means great opportunity. And this is something that we've noticed all the way back in 2019 when we started our operation here. The first thing that we did in order to make sure that we tackle the challenges of this region. So, number one, you mentioned what are the challenges? The challenge when it comes to CDN will pretty much always be the same thing. Nowadays, end users, and this is something that is, I think, a given. They want instant response from their streaming platform. Nobody wants to go and open their usual streaming platform to watch whatever their movie, their series, or even if there's a live event to watch their sporting event, and they want to wait even a second or 2 seconds for their content to load. Nobody wants to be watching a football match and receive a message saying that their favorite player has scored, and then a second later
Oh
they
my
see the
God,
goal happen.
never again.
Everyone expects instant response when it comes to their streaming platform. And we've noticed that a delay of even 3 to 4 seconds can have massive consequences when it comes to the conversion rate. And we've seen this, yeah, we've even done it ourselves. How many times did we not open, for example, a specific streaming platform and we want to watch a movie or something, and after a second it's not loading, we jump to the next one. This happens all the time. So the only way to tackle this is to, again, do the same thing that EdgeNext has done. We've partnered with every single major telco and ISP in the region. We have POPs located at their premises, and we have a significant amount of edge servers. So this tackles the first challenge, which is to have enough edge servers to accommodate for the load. But that's not enough.
Cutting you on this one, I think it's a little bit frustrating for the platforms. They can have amazing content, they can acquire expensive content, but if they have an issue when it comes to speed, buffering, downloads, they
Ruins
can lose the
everything.
client and he will leave, of course, but not for one day. It can live for 1 month or forever.
Some people might cancel their subscription, and this is why it's very important to ensure having this instant response. So there are a few things that these streaming platforms can do, in order to avoid this. Number one is to partner with companies such as EdgeNext, which have a significant amount of edge servers in the region. I'm going to mention, if that's okay with you, and something that we do from
Sure.
our side to prevent this from happening, and something that we encourage streaming platforms to do from their side, to prevent this from happening. Because we also need to work as consultants with them and tell them there are solutions that you need to think about. So one thing that we do from our end, besides the fact that we've invested heavily in our infrastructure in the region, is that most major CDN providers right now use AI technology to avoid having a specific edge server being overcrowded with traffic, overloaded with traffic. Nowadays, you can be doing everything manually. So we have systems in place. For example, let's say Jan is based in Dubai and he's watching his movie. So he's being served from the edge node that is located in Dubai, but then there's too many people being connected. So our systems, which we call in our own terminology, intelligent routing systems, will automatically identify this issue. And without you even noticing as an end user, you will be redirected to the edge node, for instance, that is in Abu Dhabi. This will ensure a seamless experience for you as an end user, and everything will remain at peak performance. Now, this is what we do from our end. But to go beyond this, EdgeNext is not only, I would say, a service provider, is not only a tech provider. We also work as consultants for our own clientele. So one thing that we would advise, streaming platforms, and this is especially for streaming platforms to be serving not only the MENA region, but the global market as an overall, massive streaming platforms, need to consider something that we call a multi-CDN approach. Look, I'm going to say a statement, and this is me being very transparent because I believe that transparency and honesty is the most important thing in our line of business. Nobody can claim yet that they are the strongest CDN provider worldwide. Although we have the strongest infrastructure in the MENA region, there are other major players, for example, that might have a structure that is as competitive as ours in Europe, and some others that might have a structure that is even more advanced than ours in regions like North America, for example. So when we have a massive streaming platform which has people not only in the MENA region, but in Europe, in North America, in Latin America, in Asia, then we would advise that these streaming platforms consider something we call a multi-CDN. CDN.
We are in 2026 and there is still like a streaming platform without a multi-CDN strategy, right?
If you reach a certain size as a streaming platform and you don't have a multi-CDN strategy, we believe this to be a mistake. We've seen companies unfortunately suffer the consequences of that decision, over the last year.
And yeah, I want to hear from you about peak traffic. You mentioned football. Of course, that's, I think, one of the best example of crazy traffic in a short amount of time. Having said that, in MENA, we have a time of the year that is also impressive when it comes to peak traffic. It's not only about one night, but it's one full month, of course. I'm talking about
Exactly.
Ramadan.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I assume multi-CDN is key also for Ramadan, right?
When we have occasions such as the holy month of Ramadan, where truly, like you've mentioned, we notice peak traffic, there are a few things that a CDN provider need to take into consideration. So number one is the obvious, like you've mentioned. We need to make sure that we have a footprint when it comes to our infrastructure that is significant enough to accommodate for that load. We need to have the right infrastructure, the right hardware, and the right technology to distribute that load properly. So just like we've mentioned earlier, the primary thing that would allow us to manage these peak traffic periods is, of course, the investment that we've made into the infrastructure in the region. But again, this is also where it's very important to have a team that is locally based. For example, our team, when it comes to Ramadan, is locally based here in the UAE and throughout the Middle East. So whenever we know that a specific streaming platform is going to be facing much more traffic during the month of Ramadan because they have some series that people enjoy to watch during Ramadan, or there's some events that people are drawn to during Ramadan, they will make sure to have this constant monitoring when it comes to the streaming platform to make sure that at any given time they can provide the necessary additional bandwidth from our own infrastructure. You need to have the proper communication with your telcos and ISPs. You need to have the right communication with your partners to understand, are you expecting something specific during those days? So there needs to be constant communication, constant monitoring. We have teams that are available quite literally 24/7 to make sure that this process is seamless. We take phone calls in the middle of the night as well as we receive messages during the morning.
And trust is everything, I assume. So, as always.
Absolutely. The whole business is based on that, yes.
I'm still impressed by Ramadan because, of course, at the time where TV channels were the only way to follow strong episodes every day, it was very high. And then when streaming, we were expecting people to watch not only during 1 month, but all over the year. But that's not true. We still see crazy peak traffic every day, every night. That's good. And I'm sure it will keep growing in the future.
You know, one thing that is funny, Jan, and I'll tell you what I've noticed, as you know, like we've mentioned at the beginning, I am Belgian, but I'm also originally Middle Eastern. So I remember for us Middle Easterns, when we were kids, there were some TV channels that we were used to watch during Ramadan because, you know, it's very nostalgic. You know, there were some
Of
things
course,
that we grew up watching. Exactly. And in the early days of streaming, the streaming platforms, they didn't manage to replicate this nostalgia. But nowadays, these streaming platforms are able to do that. And so the older generation, which was used to watching certain shows, to hear a certain sound when it came to ads, we hear it and we see it on the streaming platform. So we're shifting to the streaming platforms. And when it comes to the younger generation, they're just wired differently. They're not like you and me, and they want everything
true.
instantly. They want to binge watch their favorite show. And so nowadays, I think it's fair to say that streaming platforms are seeing more traffic during times like Ramadan than your traditional broadcasting channels.
Okay, so we mentioned traffic peaks, we mentioned startup times, buffering, inconsistent video quality. We discussed about the impact on retention, churn, brand perception. What about costs? I think having a multi-CDN is not a reason to pay upfront, right?
So when it comes to dealing with a CDN provider, we place different options on the table based on the traffic that this customer is having on a monthly or yearly basis. So the first option, which is the most common one, is what we call a traffic commitment agreement. So usually
Okay.
the way it works is very simple. For instance, you tell me that you're consuming XX amount of traffic every year. So EdgeNext will build an agreement with unit prices that are tailored to that specific traffic on a yearly basis. So you're committing as a client to consume this much traffic. Now, with that being said, we are very flexible when it comes to that form of agreement. So, for instance, we offer policies like carryover policy, which means that if you don't consume the entirety of your traffic this year, it can be moved to the year after.
Good to know.
We have fixed unit prices, sometimes that we can maintain on overages. And this is usually the kind of agreement that we encourage clients to go with because this allows us to really build this long-term relationship where we make sure we give them the best of what we have price-wise, and at the same time, we manage to keep monitoring this traffic commitment over the years. And this is usually the agreements that we have with our major strategic accounts. Now, of course, I fully understand. There's one thing that can't be denied is that over the past few months, things in the region have created a little bit of doubt in some people's heart, and therefore we need to put strategies in place that make people feel more comfortable and maybe they feel that they don't have to make such a big commitment, which is also something that EdgeNext understands. So we have something that we call pay-as-you-go strategy. The pay-as-you-go agreement, just like the name implies, is very simple. You partner up with companies like EdgeNext, and at the end of the month, or depending on the period that we agree on, you get billed only for what you use in terms of traffic. And if you don't use, then you don't get billed. It's as simple as this. So this is one of those things that we have in place to make the multi-CDN strategy even easier to access for streaming platforms. If you're a streaming platform, you can partner with a tier one global CDN provider such as EdgeNext and only pay for what you're using at the end of the month. And I'm sure that you can have a similar model with another tier one CDN provider. And here you go, you have two or three major CDN providers in your infrastructure, and you only pay for what you utilize. So this is one of the things that companies like EdgeNext are making possible for their clients in the market to make this whole multi-CDN strategy even more accessible and even easier to adopt.
That's great to hear. At the end of the day, we are all in the same boat and we all believe in the
Absolutely.
potential of the region and we want to see streaming media in MENA grow stronger, faster.
100%.
We talk about EdgeNext a lot, but I heard you saying something very important for me. You said that one of the key positioning of EdgeNext is also acting as consultant, right? To advise your client, to understand them, not to just try to come and sell your solutions and services. So is this something very
Absolutely.
important for EdgeNext? I assume worldwide, but specifically in the region?
Absolutely. It's something that is extremely important for EdgeNext and extremely important for me as well. This is an approach that I've used in every single role that I've had over the past decade. So when it comes to those B2B partnerships, we want to make sure that we're building long-term partnerships. It's never about the short-term win. It's always about growing with our customers. We have clients that we started with when they were medium-sized account, and now one of them, for example, is the world's largest social media platform. So this is exactly the kind of relationship that we're trying to build with our clients, and this can only be made possible when we work together, understanding what they need and how we can accommodate. And there needs to be this communication and this consultancy approach. At the end of the day, we are two businesses, and the purpose of each business is to play the long game and be successful and be profitable. And the only way we can achieve this together is by understanding each other's businesses. For us, EdgeNext, to understand our client's business like it's our own, and make sure we can advise them on the decisions that they need to make CDN wise, digital performance wise, that will ensure the best quality for their end user. Because what we provide is directly linked to their end user retention and their end user conversion rate. So if we make any mistake, this will result huge impact in their bottom line. So the
Yes.
only way we can make sure that this never happens is to have this smooth communication, this consultancy approach for us to do our homework, to understand the client's business, and to keep advising them and helping them and pushing them towards the right direction when it comes to this particular technology.
It's a complex business. One mistake can affect both companies.
There's no room for mistakes. Yes, absolutely.
During my discussions, I like to share some practical data insights. I think you have a case study you would like to share with us.
Yes. So EdgeNext has been working over the past few years with one of the largest, if not the largest, Arabic streaming platform in the region. So when we first started working with them, they had some challenges, but personally, I wouldn't call them challenges. I would call them areas of improvement because they were already an amazing company when we started working with them. So the areas of improvement were mainly the fact that they were facing unexpected traffic surges during major events, major sporting events. This would cause latency, frequent buffering during live events. And as we mentioned, you can imagine how frustrating it can be for any end user watching a live event like a football match, for example, and then have some buffering during the match. They had a lack of local CDN nodes in many Middle Eastern countries. You might be surprised, Jan, that a lot of the major players in the world of CDN, the biggest names in the industry, they actually don't have that many edge nodes in the Middle East. So a lot of times when these major streaming platforms in the region, they work with these big names in the market, their data is being sent all the way to nodes, for instance, in Europe or in different regions to be able to serve their end users here in the MENA region. They decided to partner with EdgeNext. We started working together. And this is where you can see, Jan, that when I'm saying we have a consultancy approach, when I say that we grow with our customers, I'm not just spewing sales talk. I'm being very real with the words that I'm choosing. For example, for this particular client, we deployed over 3.7 tera of edge resources in Saudi Arabia. We established additional edge nodes in regions like Egypt, Kuwait, Qatar, Turkey, and 10 more countries. So we went and we sent our team all over the MENA region and beyond to create new edge nodes in our POPs and sometimes even open new POPs to accommodate this client,
Specific
uh,
investment for this client. Yeah.
Yes, yes, absolutely. We established interconnections with major local ISPs. We tried to reduce the user to edge latency to under 5 milliseconds, etc. So we optimized origin return path and caching architecture. So this is also something very important that we need to mention, Ian. Having a strong CDN provider decreases your egress cost. So a lot of people don't understand what this means. When data is leaving your origin server, so your main primary server, as a company, you're paying money. The more times the data that is being delivered to your end users, the more egress cost you have to pay to that cloud provider. And the more times this data is served from the edge node of EdgeNext, the less you have to pay egress cost to
Interesting.
your cloud provider. Exactly. So egress cost is one of the biggest costs that most companies face. We try as much as possible to keep what we call a cache hit ratio. Actually, I'd like to take a break here and explain what this
Yes,
means because
please.
this is extremely important. When you have a company that is hosting their data on an origin server, it's usually an origin server that is operated by your major cloud providers worldwide. Every time an end user wants to connect to their application or website, the data is served from that origin server. This company needs to pay something we call an egress cost. It's like, imagine, yeah, it's free for you to enter a hotel, but if you want to exit this hotel, you need to pay money. That's the egress cost. When data
Mhm.
needs to leave the cloud server of this company, they need to pay a cost. This is one of the most significant costs that any company need to pay. So one way to decrease that cost is to make sure that data is hosted on the edge nodes of this provider that you're dealing with, and that most times when an end user needs to access your services, your digital services, this data is delivered through the edge node. Every time an end user connects to your streaming platform and they're able to watch their series directly from the edge node of the CDN provider, it's called the cache hit ratio, and this
Okay.
decreases the egress cost on the streaming platforms. We try as EdgeNext to maintain that cache hit ratio above 90%. So that was also one of the things that we needed to achieve for this specific, streaming platform that I've mentioned.
Very interesting.
The benefit and the result of what we've managed to do is that we've managed to achieve a full regional content localization coverage across the Middle East, significantly improving the user experience. We've reduced their buffering rate by over 20%. And when we say 20% in this line of business for a streaming platform this
Huge.
large, that's a huge amount. We've improved the playback startup time by over 18%. Overall, what we've done in simple words, Jan, is that we've reduced the latency, we've reduced the buffering, we've reduced the delay, we've ensured that end users had instant response from their streaming platform, and this resulted in improved conversion rate for that streaming platform. It resulted in improved user experience. And by the way, this streaming platform, like any other major one, has a multi-CDN setup. And when they started working with us in the Middle East, in the beginning, they would move, I would say, a not a huge percentage of their traffic through our edge nodes, but nowadays over 90% of their traffic delivered in the MENA region is through the EdgeNext CDN network, which goes to show you that we've managed to build this level of trust that is required for a streaming company this size to be moving so much traffic through our edge nodes. And when I say traffic, yeah, I'm not talking about gigabytes. I'm talking about hundreds of petabytes a month. That's a huge amount of data. Yeah.
That's great to hear best practices coming from the region. I'm really happy to hear about what happened in the past few years when it comes to this specific client. And you are humble. We did not mention the name, but I think I know this client, and it's not easy to sign them, especially when it comes to tech infrastructure. So congrats to the team. Honestly, it's a big achievement. Last point, Sami, what do you think will have the greatest impact when it comes to streaming infrastructures in the next few, I would like to say years, but it will be faster, so months.
I'll answer this question completely differently. It's more like a message to streaming platforms and people in the industry. And the message is very clear. Don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone when it comes to things like your CDN providers. And the reason why I'm saying this is because your end user experience is directly linked to everything else in your business. How your business is viewed as a streaming platform, the content that you manage to push through your streaming platforms. People who want to put their content on your streaming platform, they do so because of the quality of the digital experience of that streaming platform. This is directly linked to your conversion rate, to your growth in the region. And nowadays, there's a lot of flexible options that major CDN providers like EdgeNext are providing in order for you guys to start working with us without having to make big commitments. So take advantage of this. Of major players like EdgeNext and even other CDN players that are being very flexible when it comes to their agreement structures to encourage you to adopt this multi-CDN. Don't be afraid to leave your comfort zone to improve your end users' digital experience. You would be surprised at how much this could increase your conversion rate and increase your ability to basically eat up more market share in this beautiful industry. And as EdgeNext, we are here to be with you from day one, to embark with you on this journey and to help you in every step of of the way, like we've done with many other companies. I can say this with confidence. Every single person in the MENA region, when they grab their phone or when they open their TV, at least once or twice or even 3 times a day, they're using a company that is basically moving their data through EdgeNext CDN network. Really, I'm looking forward to seeing the MENA region become one of the world's most important hubs when it comes to streaming, OTT, and media, which I believe is going to happen over the next few years.
Thank you so much, Samy. It was amazing talking to you today.
Thank
I
you.
have two more questions for you. How can
Absolutely.
we contact you?
It's very simple. I'm based in EdgeNext offices in Dubai Media City. You can contact me simply through LinkedIn. My phone number is available, my email address. You can contact me by any means of communication that is comfortable for you.
I'll share everything next to the video in the article.
Absolutely. Don't hesitate. Call me and we can have a coffee and we can have a nice discussion about CDN.
Perfect. One more thing. What's next for Edge Next when it comes to event? I think LEAD 2026 in Saudi, right?
I'm going to be there. We're present in almost all of your major events. So we were there at GITEX, we're here at Leap. So all the major tech-oriented events, you're pretty much sure to find EdgeNext there.
And I'll see your colleagues at IBC in Amsterdam, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Perfect. Can't wait. Thank you again. Merci, Samy. See you soon for a coffee in Media City.
Thank you, Jan. Thank you. Merci. Thank you.